She wrote her first journal entry at 7 and never stopped listening to her soul. What if your childhood heartbreak was actually your first glimpse of your purpose? In this episode of Unleashed and Empowered, I sit down with the luminous Sonia, award-winning author, intuitive coach, and the visionary founder of Flourish with Sonia. We dive into Sonia's powerful evolution from high-performing speech pathologist and mum of 3 to becoming a published author, intuitive guide, and voice for raising empowered humans in a new energetic paradigm. This isn't just a story of reinvention. It's a masterclass in trusting your timing, tuning into your own energetic truth, and letting go of what no longer fits. We talk spiritual awakenings, parenting intuitive kids, navigating grief, and how Sonia is now using AI as a mirror for soul-aligned creation. If you've ever questioned whether it's too late to pivot, share your magic, or rewrite your story, this conversation is the permission slip your soul has been waiting for. Sonia will remind you, you already know. You're just remembering now. Welcome to Unleashed and Empowered, the podcast for visionaries and hard-led entrepreneurs who refuse to shrink or settle. I'm Alice Taugs, your host, guide, and fellow traveler in the messy but magical journey of entrepreneurship, blending spirituality, energy, intuition, and AI to amplify aligned business and personal power. Through raw conversations, both solo and with inspiring guests, we explore the moments that change everything, helping you trust yourself, redefine success, and create with courage and ease. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of Unleashed and Empowered. And I'm excited about every single guest that I have on my show. But I have to say, I'm a little bit more excited because it's you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Sonia Bestulic, welcome to the show.
I am super excited, not just a little, to be here with you, Alice. And I don't want to get into my little bubble of overwhelmed joy and compliments, but honestly, it's an absolute joy to be joining you. I love everything you do, everything you share, and just the vibe that you're putting out to the world. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. You're already making me cry. This is going to be a first. And that obviously comes with the heightened emotions of you also joining us in Italy in 4 weeks. We're flying out tonight in 4 weeks. I know the episode is obviously not going to come out today, but we're obviously all very excited and prepping for Italy. But that is not the reason why we're on today. The way that I want to start every episode is with your story, your sliding door moments, the reason why you do what you do. Where did you come from, and how did all of this happen, or the magic that you bring out today? Take us through the long version, the short version, the intuitive version.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take you through a version. The one question that you had, like, where do you come from? I was like, ooh, how many hours do we have, Alice? And then I thought, no, I'm just going to filter that one out and just go with the traditional story that I offer. I think where I want to start is really taking back to a moment in my childhood. And this one I have shared a number of times. But really, my childhood was one where I grew up in a very loving household. It was also very news-filled. And the TV was on the news all the time, and the newspapers were always on the table. And there was one particular afternoon when I was 7 years of age, when I came home from school, and I walked past the TV and then just stopped in my tracks as there was a news update that was on. And I just was standing there, confronted by all the scenes that were in front of me. And in that moment, what I did feel was confusion and heartbreak. I was just so heartbroken at what I was seeing, and I just didn't understand like what people were doing to one another and why there wasn't harmony and just peace. And really that moment was a big catapult into me deciding that I wanted to do something to help bring the healing and the harmony into the world. And it was also a moment where I realized how much I loved humanity. Like I just had so much love and I had so much desire. So I started writing from that age. I was journaling every day and I was reading everything I could. And I was really into, I know this sounds weird for a 7-year-old, but I was really into, and this is the Italian background coming into, I was really into saints and humanitarians, and healers and miracles. And so I was reading everything I could, but that was really my passion. And so from there, I was really sharing, within my journals, what was going on for me in my world and what I wished for the world. And so, fast forward from there, it wasn't a surprise that I then studied to be a speech pathologist, studied human sciences. But along the way and all the way, I was always studying, human potential and personal development and growth, particularly along that kind of spirituality path. So then bridging science and spirituality was something that I was, I guess, organically doing. I wouldn't have used those labels at the time. And then when I left uni, I worked nationally and internationally as a speech pathologist, and I very quickly came to see that the systems were disempowering us and they were creating codependence. And so that really fueled me to then found my own speech pathology company in Sydney, Australia. And I led that for over 18 years. And there it was about, I want to create and provide services that actually nurture the whole human, that it's not just about managing them in a transactional way. And during that time, I had 3 children, all born in 2.5 years. And during that time, which was a bit crazy and wild and beautiful and all this big, mess, beautiful mess, in that time, I wrote my 2 children's books. And very much on the themes of, learning through play and joy. And my second book was very much about drawing on the power of love within, and really using that to foster bravery and courage and that emotional resilience. And then from there, the writing continued, and I realized that, the world of motherhood taught me so much. Like there was no learning curve. It was just that vertical line. And I really resonated with all the thousands of mums that I'd worked with over the years, where they really weren't getting into that deep level of self-care and self-nurturance and self-honouring. And that then led me to write Flourish for Mums. So from there, podcasting, chat about children, I was all like, how do I help as many people as I can? And that kind of drive has always been there, combined with eventually getting the memo, Sonia, it's inside out, not outside in, right? So that did come. I got that memo. Woohoo! And that obviously, you can see that with the evolution of, what I've offered over the years. And as we all are, we're always growing. But it's about how do we grow through the stages of our life, and then how do we, alchemize that to provide the golden wisdom and the nuggets to help others, and empower others to be able to grow through their stages and then continue that legacy of sharing and contribution. So, I know I've kind of jumped through many facets in that, but alongside, I guess, the speech pathology pathway and more of the new chapter when I founded Flourish with Sonia a few years ago, that was really about more coming out of the spiritual closet to go, okay, I'm integrating everything. Yes, there's the holistic speech pathology side to things, but there's now also the intuitive life coaching. There was the training through kind of Reiki master and energy healing and energy medicine, and really just bringing all of that together and packaging that to help people in a more holistic way, so that we're really looking at the ecosystem of a person and a family, or a person and their business, or whatever it might be. And yeah, so that's what led to Flourish with Sonia being born. And as you're aware, Alice, it also led to kind of the inspiration for my 4th book that's due to be released, at the end of 2025. And that's all about raising empowered humans, and unlocking, I call it the 5 golden keys to unlocking kids' self-leadership and lifelong flourishing. And again, that's a beautiful integration and culmination of science, spirituality, practicality, of really how you can parent your own evolution, right, whilst you're also raising a family. So, yeah, that's my little spiel.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that all of your books are not just for children or for mums. They're actually for everyone. They're for every single human being. And I know that I got a lot out of Flourish for Mums as well. I've got 2 copies sitting on my shelf here as well that I'm happy to pass on to other people. Now, you just shared sort of coming out of that spiritual closet. And I was chatting to someone yesterday who I was onboarding for Strategy by Design. And she is in that transition of a very successful business and coming out of the spiritual closet and revealing to the world the next evolution and the next pathway of what's going to happen for her. And obviously for a lot of us, that comes with so much emotion, and that comes with a certain amount of fear as well, because for such a long time we have been wearing a mask that was more acceptable to the outside world than what we're potentially moving into now. How are you navigating that?
Well, I would say it's a combination of allowing yourself to grieve, and being okay with that. And grief, it's almost, it happens in micro moments in life. We are actually constantly grieving because we're constantly in a cycle of change. And so grief doesn't have to be this heavy, but we're grieving in the sense that we are always evolving. My body's not what it was yesterday. It's different today. It could be stronger today. It doesn't mean it's not, right? So we're constantly changing and evolving. And so being okay with letting go of aspects of your life, being okay with that rather than holding on, that's number one, I would say. And then the second thing is being grateful for the gifts that don't always feel or look like gifts. And that can be really hard. But that was one that I really learned. And it wasn't to bypass anything, but it was to just trust that sometimes I don't know the answers consciously, but I trust that everything is happening for me, and I've got to keep trusting that. And so the trust then becomes faith, which then becomes just an inner kind of surrender and certainty that it's okay and I'm okay. So that combination of gratitude and trust, definitely. And the big one is surround yourself with people like here you are, right, that are of your vibe tribe. Like that is just so crucial. It's part of how you're looking after yourself in a sovereign way. So you've got to be conscious about who am I allowing in? Who do I need to be around? And simply just know that you are not a burden, and I think for a long time, when you're a high achiever or you're just on the go, you feel like, you're on a mission, you got stuff to do, and you feel like you have to be doing all the time to be productive or effective or whatever that distorted belief pattern was. It's just realize you cotton onto it, and then you become aware and like, oh, that's what I was doing, or that's what I'm falling into, and just having a laugh at yourself and going, that's okay. And so there's that combination of gratitude and who you hang out with and who you allow within your field, and then of course forgiveness is the other big one. Again, like when you're so hard on yourself, and I have been multiple times in life, the forgiveness piece is really coming back to unconditional acceptance of self. And when you get to that point, it's actually quite a peaceful place to be, because everything then just feels like it's a choice. What you're choosing and how you're choosing in life, you're back at the driver's seat. And you can be in cruise control and you still get to where you're going to go. And that's pretty cool. So,
Absolutely, yeah. Now, you just touched on two things that I want to dive into a little bit deeper. And whilst I said there is a lot of this going to be intuitively led, I had a couple of points written down. And one of them was the trusting. Because you and I, we've had a very similar path on how our lives changed and the sliding door moments that came with that. And I know that a lot of people, it is just so hard to trust that the things that are happening to us are actually happening for a reason. And sometimes we don't understand that reason, or we don't understand the gift of it until years and years later. You have managed to go through so many things with such grace and such dignity and grace. Yeah, grace is probably the right word for it. How do you keep that perceived state of calm that you just show to the outside world?
well, I feel like I'm coming back to unconditional acceptance. I feel like that's really it. And I think it's really about allowing that unconditional acceptance of self. Like that's part of it. And obviously there's a process, but it's also a mindset. It's a heart set. It's a soul set. It's that aligned lens of, just how do I want to experience life? And when you ask yourself that question, say, well, I'm choosing how I want to experience life and the lens that I place, then this is where true empowerment really is unleashed, if I can use the words of your podcast title, right? Excuse the pun, but it's true. So I really feel like it's those moments of just being real with yourself and being honest. And just listening in, tuning in, being with yourself, tuning into the intuition, and the depths of being in silence with yourself. And that's really where the power lies, right? Because that's it. That's really your anchor. That's where you're able to listen and actually hear the wisdom and the guidance. And that's where the trust comes in, because that kind of trust, when you're at the just knowing, then it becomes unshakable. It does allow, that level of certainty where, it's almost like a still point, because all the static is kind of cleared. And so it changes the rhythm that every day is experienced. I hope that all kind of makes some sense.
It does. It is cellular level, that's for sure. Sometimes it doesn't make, sometimes it doesn't quite arrive at the intellectual level, but it certainly arrives at the cellular level. Now, you are incredibly intuitive. And obviously that's something that you have gifted me. When I come to you with a question, you always say, Alice, you already know the answer yourself, and I'm not going to give it to you. And you just need to listen for it, and you just need to feel it. How have you developed such an incredible sense of intuition? Like, what's the connection that you're fostering with yourself? What are the practices that you lean into that work for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I find that it just changes all the time. As I said before, like life is in constant change. So as much as I'd like to say, here's an approach and do it and it's going to work, that's not it. So it kind of does lean into, when you're in that relationship and rapport with yourself, then you kind of get to play a little bit. Like okay, so if I'm speaking about myself personally, for example, it's any words that I use, within any thought processes, like what are those words, what are the frequency of those words that I'm using with myself. And that's just scraping the surface, because ultimately it's also what are the actions that I'm taking, what are the experiences I'm creating. So, and that's just from little, like I love making almost everything a ritual. I love just, oh, it's morning, like how do I want to celebrate this moment? Or if I'm not feeling like celebrating, how do I want to just feel gratitude for it? And I know that this gift is not packaged in a way I was expecting, but I know it's a gift. And again, it's, if a feeling comes up, I'm just letting it come up. I think it's part of the intuitive channel for all of us, because we're all channels at the end of the day. We're all, receiving information and relaying information. A big part of that is how are you nourishing and nurturing your energetic integrity and your field. So there's always that element of, we'll say, purification, if you like, so that you are able to be clear on, if you're receiving a message, like that you can actually feel it and know, okay, that was it. And I guess, I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but I think there's no one size fits all, and it really comes down to the essence of how am I nurturing that deep time with myself and checking in with myself. How am I allowing my body to also help, because your body is such an incredibly intelligent instrument. How am I allowing that in so that, people talk about a full body yes, and sometimes we don't think about those terms, but yeah, it's like literally a full body yes. So it's really about integrating all of that. And some, look, Alice, there are some times that I don't have a clear read, and you've heard me say this, where I'm like, I don't know that, I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting till I get a clear yes or a clear no. And I can try tools that I've been taught before, like, do this and hold your heart here and lean forward and lean left and right and spin a pendulum and whatever, all the stuff. And I'm like, nah, it's not doing it for me. I don't have clarity on this. And so sometimes it's like, well, that's just how it's meant to be. And I'm good with that. And so then letting go of trying to go, I need to know, like I need to have a yes or a no. There are times when I'm like, I don't have a clear one, so I'm just going to wait, let things unfold. Yep. I'm going to keep my eyes and all my senses open to any information that needs to come in to help me understand and guide me. So it's really that conscious intention to be like, I'm open to receive the answer. And look, sometimes I get answers I'm not happy with, and I'm like, are you for real? Or I'll have a little tear, and because I'd be so scared or nervous, and I'm like, are you sure this is right? And I'm having those little conversations with myself. But it's, your heart just knows. And when you've got that gut feel in the heart, it's like, I just got to trust and just take the next step. So hopefully that kind of, I feel like what needs to be communicated is that it's not a one size fits all. And no matter how large your toolbox, like I'd like to think I've got, a large toolbox, I've done a lot of training, blah, blah, blah. It helps me a lot when I'm working with people. Absolutely. But it's constantly changing and expanding, and, and it's okay. And I think I've stopped feeling like I need to have all the answers. But I just need to know that the answers are all present and available for me, and that's cool. Divine timing will assist that. So kind of takes pressure off.
It does. And I think one of the other gifts that you have really given to me as well is the fact that we don't always need to control everything, because obviously as we have these heart missions that we feel so passionate about, we want to share it with the world so urgently, because we all feel this sense of urgency behind the timing, behind getting it to as many people as we can possibly touch. And as you say, sometimes the timing isn't right, and sometimes the controlling and the pushing is doing the complete and polar opposite to the allowing and the surrendering and the leaning back and trusting that whatever gifts we have been given are going to be utilized at the right time. And I really struggle with that. So I'm constantly like, what would Sonia do in this case? She would go out and play. She would be in nature. She would be hugging a tree. She would be, like this morning, I was having a cup of coffee in bed, and I actually pulled back the sheer blinds as well. And the dolphins were jumping. There were literally 15 dolphins swimming past. The view from our balcony. And I have never seen so many of them jump at the same time. And obviously there is only this little clearance right in front of our house where there is no shrublands and nothing. So it's just clear view, and they decided to jump right in front there. And I was just like this little child giggling away. And I think, that's sort of the essence of what you keep telling people as well. It's that curiosity, that playfulness, that childlike wonder that we as adults forget so often.
100%. And yes, I do all those things you described plus more. Like, and I think it's so beautiful because when you can experience life with more of that palpable connection of aliveness, of going for a walk in the park and just feeling like, my gosh, every blade of grass is alive, and you can be grateful for that, and looking at, and yes, I will, pop my hand on a tree and just feel into it, and what does it have to share with me? And my gosh, there's just so much incredible wisdom that comes through from, of course, beyond humans, like Mother Earth and all sorts of things, depending on how much time you want to go into it. But that leads to how do we want to experience life? And when you open yourself to, I want to experience that aliveness and that energy of it, and the love, and that and that I'm connected to all of it, I'm part of it all, then it's very hard to feel separate, even though you do sometimes, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, that old illusion, okay. And, but then you come into feeling that interconnectedness and that aliveness. And that's really, when you talk about coming back into that alignment and that calm space, it's not about fixing. You got to realize you're just in a rhythm, and you've got to you're always in recalibration. And that's what's constantly occurring. So yeah, nature, super powerful. I just love the wisdom that all offers, obviously. And yeah, just have fun. Like, really have fun, and have the questions. Be curious. And that's really what excites inspiration, new ideas, innovation. There's so much that comes from that. And I think that I feel very privileged that I get to work, and still do, with a small number of children. Of course, I have my own, but it's pretty incredible for almost 30 years, just the amount of wisdom that I've learned and keep learning from these young souls that just have so much raw wisdom and information that we are all, need to be open to learning from. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to take you somewhere else next, but let's stay with the kids for a moment, because you have such an incredible connection to the kids, and we talk about this a lot. They're obviously all born into a very different frequency now. And they already come with much greater wisdom of what's going to happen next, or what the potential for this world is next. What are some of the most recent experiences that you've had that have just blown you away at a different level?
Well, I would say, as you know, I work with a lot of neurodivergent individuals, some who have a formal diagnosis of autism, some who don't, or some who just have various learning difficulties, etc. So it's quite incredible, because what I love is that there's just their unique frequency is expressed. And I mean, obviously we all have a unique frequency, but for a lot of the kids who I work with, and even the young adults similarly, there's the conditioning doesn't stick so much, it's not there, right? So you get that raw frequency. And I think what's been really fascinating is, I would say, and I think I shared this with you, Alice, like, it was only recently, a few months ago, that I was doing a formal assessment with a little 4-year-old, and what was quite interesting was, like, I was flipping pages, and I had to, there was an instruction that I would say, and that she would then have to point to the picture. And it was like, I lost count of how many times I would flip it and then before I'd even said the question, she would point and she'd get it right. And the first time it happened, I'm like, oh, okay, like whatever, fluke. And then I did it the second time. The mum was sitting right there, the second one, and then the girls just pointed. I'm like, I haven't even said anything. And the mum's just like, It's like the head tilt. Okay, we've seen this twice. And it would have happened for a number. It would have been probably less than 10 times, but getting up there where this little girl she just kept pointing before the words would leave my mouth. And I'm like, that's super cool. And I know that you and I and many other people, we talk about, that ability. Even my daughter mentioned it the other day, actually. Like, she's like, seems like people are just like, I say stuff before they do, or they say it just before. So yes, you can call it telepathy, or you can just call it that shared space energetically, if you like. But it's been really interesting that more of that's been coming up. And that was really quite so concrete and so like happening in front of my eyes kind of thing. I think I've known it and I've experienced it, but in that kind of format, that was super cool. And to share it with, her mum as well, that she was like, wow, like she's just like tuned in, and we were on the same channel. And I guess I've seen that obviously with other kids who I've worked with who are non-verbal or not speaking, where we're in that shared field of just, we are understanding one another. There is that communication without the words. And, that's just so powerful. And I think it's just a reminder of just our general human capabilities. I know it's a bit like, wow, that's so, but I feel like it's just who we are and how we're built in the sophistication of our beings. So that's been quite interesting. And I think what I've seen more and more is that, I think just, and I'm trying to kind of understand how to summarize this part, but I know that for me, in the way that I work, a lot of the kids who I work with, having their bodies so rigid and still just does not work for them. And I feel like, our systems that often call for rigidity and stillness and, as a way of listening and learning, that doesn't ring true, and there are millions around the world, not just kids, where they're really moving their bodies in ways that their body is telling them to move so that they can be in rhythm and they can recalibrate. And so when I am working with kids, even if we are doing writing or reading, we will be on the floor. Like I have one little one he rolls he does backwards somersaults, forwards, like he's doing all sorts of stuff. But do you know what? He's learning incredibly. He's doing what he needs to do. I know he can't quite do that in the classroom. However, I guess part of our work is bridging what he needs to learn and in the way that he can learn. And I'm seeing that in more and more kids, is just, when they're little, their bodies are telling them what they need. It's often that we're coming over that with how things should look and how things need to be. And that's where, we get all those challenges and those gaps and all sorts of other issues that can arise from it. So I think, so I do feel like there's that real strong reminder that there are different ways for us to learn, and we've got to have our bodies help us in communicating what we need. So that's a big one as well. And that's kind of the art of that connection and that communication is, I feel like what they're kind of saying is we need to, reinvigorate this line and this channel of communication. So they would probably be, a couple of the really big key ones, I think. Does that help give you a little bit of an overview?
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're already half an hour into this episode. I knew this was going to be a very non-linear episode, and that is perfectly fine. Let's quickly talk about how we've met, because there is part intuitive there is part past life connection, definitely, for sure. And following the nudges. Before we even jumped on this podcast episode, we were talking about the intuitive nudges and the coincidences, and the universe making messages sometimes very, very clear. And obviously with us, all of that has happened on so many occasions. And every time we get together, it feels like we are expanding time for a weekend, and it feels like we're working through so much stuff in such a short period of time. It's always quite mind-boggling. Do you want to share with our listeners on how we've met?
So, yeah, well, I mean, what year was it, Alice? What lifetime? Anyway, we well, in this one, it was basically I'd reached out to have a coffee date because we were in the same business community, in the Powerful Steps community. So I'd reached out for a Zoom coffee date, and I still actually remember. I remember the room I was in. You know, those moments you just remember every detail. So I remember the room I was in.
Yeah.
And when we clicked into our call, and at that time, you know, you were starting to look at launching retreats and that kind of thing. And you hadn't really got too far into saying that. That's just what I had learned by reading your bio and kind of just doing my little bit of homework. But certainly within the first minute, I would say, of being on our Zoom call together, I said, we're going to be in Tuscany together and, running a retreat. And you were like, I mean, you can give your own version of the story, but that's what mine was. And I know that you were like, yeah, like absolutely one day, international retreats. And, so there was that. Tuscany was mentioned pretty quickly, within the first few seconds. And as you said before, we're going to be there in a matter of weeks together. So that's pretty incredible. And that would have been at least 4, if not more, years ago, I reckon.
Yeah.
About 4 years ago. And so, look, we obviously clicked immediately from there, but we also knew, we didn't have all the answers, but we knew that there was something. We knew there was a little spark that we wanted to just keep following. And so from there we followed, I guess, the intuitive nudges of, fast forward, we ended up collaborating and also collaborating with another incredible woman, Julia Scott. And together we created Flourishing Ladies. And the summary, we ran events across Australia and internationally.
And New Zealand,
Yep, in New Zealand. And which is actually quite mind-blowing, really, just thinking about that. From that one call, we just, soon after, we had a national, international tour going on. And then really from there, things, I guess, continued to evolve. I mean, how much more do you want to add? There's other angles I could bring in, but that's kind of the...
Oh, there are like so many other angles.
I know. So I'm like, that's like the summary, the most succinct I can give. But, when it comes to following intuitive nudges, there was just, especially, coming together. Like, we hadn't even met in person until the first event that we ran together in Sydney. Now, how's that for trust, faith, and just knowing and just really answering a stronger call and a higher call? Like, this is what you've been brought together to do. And it was fun. We talk about playfulness. We just went with it. We were like, let's just do this. We didn't deliberate or analyze or we just went with it. And there were so many gifts that came from that. Segue, Alice.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. No, it was one of the most absolutely incredible time of my business career to date, because exactly what you've just said. We came together with a shared heart mission, and all we wanted to do was share what we had in a way that was open, playful, generous, coming together with people, fostering that human connection, because that's all what we were longing, and that's what so many people around Australia and New Zealand were longing for as well. And for me, it also allowed me to step way outside my comfort zone and but be surrounded by incredible women who were feeling uncomfortable with me together, because I thought, well, if we can all do it together, then it's less scary than doing it by yourself. And so Flourishing Ladies gave us the most incredible gifts. And obviously, we were also hosting an event here in Adelaide. And Stephen, who I'm about to marry in Tuscany, had a whole bunch of his VIP clients at our event. And the rest is kind of history. And you and Sophie, obviously, were at that event. Sophie was our MC. And I still remember that night when we were joking around the energetics of everything. And as I said, the rest is history and a beautiful love story. And I think I need to pin Stephen down before we're heading off. I had this intuitive nudge this morning to ring him. He's currently in Port Pirie, and say to him, before we leave, we need to do a podcast episode just about us coming together in our crazy life that we're living these days, and the next story that is about to unfold for us. But so it obviously feels like we have been friends, sisters, soul sisters for many, many lifetimes. And this is just another lifetime where we pick up on what we left off in other lifetimes. And we know that we're going to run retreats together at some stage. We have big visions, we have big dreams. And the unfolding of it is just one of the most beautiful things to witness as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's where the joy, the joyfulness and the celebration just comes in. I think, that's really it. It's, I had a client session yesterday where I was really bringing home that message of be in joy. Like, you can aim for this, but don't look at that all the time, because then you're not here. You're not in the joy, and you're always reaching for. And then you're always telling yourself you don't have. So come into, I'm complete, and all the stuff you already know. But what you've described is just that. So it's a beautiful reflection of we were really present. We were in the moment. We didn't have all the answers, but we were happy to play. Right? We're happy to listen, we're happy to play, and within that, we're happy to contribute. And that was really what was leading it all, is how can we be of service? How can we contribute? And they're the ingredients. Sometimes we try to overcomplicate things, but they are the ingredients. And that is what makes experiencing life really fun. The spontaneity and, what miracle might happen today? And, even asking yourself that question, it's like, and something that you might think is mundane could actually come across as a miracle. And you're like, so it's actually pretty cool when you can be in that energy, in that space, and just practice it. And know that it's just as beautiful as the messy times as well, even though it feels crap. But you just feel in the feels, right? But it's just, there's so much beauty and wisdom that comes from those chapters as well, and those times and moments. So, yeah.
So how are you currently supporting people with the work that you do?
So at the moment, like right in this moment, as I mentioned, I have a small cluster of one-to-one clients who I see in that holistic speech pathology realm. Some of those clients are adult clients as well, or young adults. So there is a mix of intuitive life coaching too, because there's a lot of life skills training, etc. So there's that. I still offer my one-to-one intuitive life and business coaching. Again, small handful, because I am working on lots of other stuff too. But certainly that's one way that I'm working with people. With the book coming out, I'm looking at new offerings as well, so that I can reach more people, obviously, just through different programs and different access points. So that's certainly in the pipeline. So, always happy for people to just connect with me in various ways, social media, LinkedIn, newsletter, etc. Because that's coming up. And is there anything else? I'm thinking, Alice, is there anything I've forgotten? Like there probably is. I'm going to finish this interview and go, Sonia. But yeah, look, I think they're the primary ones. Look, they're the primary ones. And really right now, there is a lot that I'm quite a bold, audacious vision that I am working on. And that really is all about, creating transformational entertainment and education that's really intended to activate heart-led self-leadership. So, I would love for people generally just to be in my world in some way, even if it's through, as I said, just popping over to my website and signing up to my newsletter, because there's more to come. So, so right now, there's exciting stuff in the pipelines. So, yeah, I feel like that kind of covers it without giving away too much.
It's just the perfect unfolding of what's going to come. That's exactly right. Let's talk about energetic protection for a second, because obviously you have, again, a lot of tools in your toolbox on how you energetically protect yourself. And I guess working with children that are born at that different frequency now, the energetic protection, especially for empaths, is going to become more and more important by the day. I know the answer is like intuition. It's not a one-size-fits-all answer, but what are some of the things that you are practicing for yourself and some of the tools that you're sharing with the people that you work with when it comes to energetic protection?
Yeah, so usually the first place I start is understanding someone's rhythm, like what's your daily rhythm? And I talked about rituals before, and I guess it's all part of that. So, and we actually shared this in the time we were doing Flourishing Ladies. If I go back to the classics of some of the things that we shared, I look at shower, morning and night. Like, how are you utilizing that time in the shower to prepare? And yet make it a ritual. Like, we are sensory beings, so I'm very big on multi-sensory. And yes, there's a lot of sensitive, how can I put this? Yes, our frequencies are different. And when I talk to a lot of neurodivergent adults, I'm like, we totally have a lot in common here. And I've been able to understand that I don't want to use the word protect yourself, but I'm going to say how you nurture and strengthen yourself and your field, so that you can still be open to receiving, but you're not absorbing what you don't need to. And I think that little shift in how you think about stuff is important, and the words you use. So, look at your routine and rhythm. Showers. So if you're having a shower, what are you intending in your shower? What do you need to wash away? What do you need to reclaim? What do you need to hold on to and strengthen? What do you need to be grateful for? So there's that real intention setting for things that you're doing every day. So showers are an easy one, morning and night for sure. Same with meals. Like when you're having a meal, set the intention, right? So, we've talked about the cup of gratitude. Like, here's my little, my rainbow unicorn cup. But you can have a beautiful ritual where it's just what have you got? Destiny, dream big. I love it.
Cup. Yep.
Yeah. Now, I can go kind of mindless and like, okay, just sipping while I'm doing stuff, sure. But if I kind of go, well, you know what, while I have this cup of tea or this cup of water, I'm going to taste it with every sip, and I may just feel grateful for this moment. And just like all of my needs are met, or whatever I want to say and feel within that sip. It's really the everyday routines of how you're coming back into yourself, and into your depth and still point. So meals, drinks, set the intention, be present with it, when you're eating, when you're drinking. because that presence, and the more you've kind of tuned into what's going on, like the work of Dr. Sue Morter, she's like, always keeping an eye on the inside, keep an eye on the inside. So the more that you're doing that, then the more you're able to feel like, oh, that didn't feel quite right, or I'm feeling this, so what do I need to do to recalibrate? And that's the answer is going to be different for everyone. So you want to ask yourself, and this is what I guide people to do. I'll say, ask your heart, like, what do you need right now? And if you don't have a clear answer, or you haven't sometimes people don't wait long enough, then ask a slightly different question, or ask a question that's absolutely not it, so you can feel your no again, right? Like, that's not it. It's this. So yes, so routine, come into your routines, rituals, your environment. Sometimes, and we've done a lot of this, look around and just go, what do I need to shift in my physical environment that just doesn't resonate with me anymore? That's going to help me retain a space that is clean and more pure and more aligned. So there's those kinds of things that I talk about. And then for some people, like when they are traveling a lot, or they're, it's okay, what are the routines and rituals for the intentions you set when you land, or the intention, all those, it's real intention. That's what I keep saying, right? It's coming into that intentional conscious choice of, this is why I'm here, this is what, how my aura feels, or if it's not feeling in a particular way, just noting that and not judging it. So, I'll call it kind of the energetic hygiene practices just have to be part of your everyday routine, in a nutshell. And you've got to also notice what does impact you. And I have this conversation with people who, they are quite sensitive, and it'll translate in their guts being sensitive. Like, oh, I can't tolerate a can of Coke anymore, or I can't have coffee so much, or can't have that alcohol, just doesn't feel right anymore. That's what you got to listen to. Listen to those shifts. Like, you're not meant to be holding on to stuff. So if your body says, whatever it is, don't, like for me, for example, it was the unfolding of like, nope, okay, meat doesn't do it for me anymore. Happy to eat fish, but not meat. Like, I didn't question it. It just felt aligned for my system. So I think when we're talking about nurturing our field and nurturing our aura, however you want to say it, there's lots of different layers. Like, everything is energy. So what are you consuming food and drink wise? What are you consuming social media wise? Yeah. And then really come into the spectrum of what am I creating rather than consuming? Because that's where a lot of us become undone, is where we overconsume. And that then kind of creates, if I can say, kind of the tears that we don't need, or that kind of thing. So I guess that, I know that was a long answer, Alice, and there's so many bits to it, which is why it's hard to summarize. But essentially it always comes back to come to know yourself, your routine and your rhythm, and just be tuned in to what's working for you and what's not. And that's across everything: people, food, drink, activities, social media, like all of it. And it's not about being perfect in any way. You're just saying, okay, I just want to respect myself and feel good today. So what's going to contribute to that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, beautiful. Whilst we're talking about consuming and listening into you, I'm going to take this to a completely new direction now. You and I have got a little obsession with ChatGPT. In a healthy way. We know where the boundaries are, but in a healthy way. So you and I, we have both been experimenting a lot with ChatGPT, and obviously there is a lot of women out there. There's a lot of high vibrational people out there, conscious people out there, who may or may not have utilized ChatGPT. Do you want to give us a few insights on what you have used it for, and what you have come across that has helped you over the last couple of months in particular in some of that evolution and that unfolding?
That's an interesting one, and it's actually a really big topic, Alice. It's a huge topic. So thanks for that question. Because, like, but yeah, look, I think I certainly wasn't one of the first people to jump on the bandwagon. It took me a little bit of time, and people kind of saying, "Hey, Sonia, like you really need to start using this for various reasons." And I think initially and I'm talking like initially, I wondered, well, where's the human spark in this? And really, because I guess even when I would receive something that was not from a human, I'd be like, that doesn't feel like it's from the person, and it just has a different vibe. So that was a little bit, probably why it took me a little bit of time to just go, okay, let me explore. And I feel like, look, probably one of the bigger turning points, as you're aware, Alice, and I don't know how much you've shared about what you've created. Have you shared much about what you've created or not?
Not so much on the podcast, but more
Not
sort
yet.
of over other channels. Not yet.
Not yet. So I guess, so can I mention it like just briefly?
Go for it.
When we were having fun and you were like, hey, check this out. And that probably, that helped me a lot because it was a real demonstration of, this is how, and obviously it was through a custom bot, so it's not OpenAI, but from what you've created, I was able to see how it could be used in a way that really was more reflective of the person who I am. So can you just give a little, I don't want to even try to explain, but can you give like a two-liner of what you've created so it makes more sense of what I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure. I wasn't even intending to go there, but let's just go there
I know,
as well.
but it'll make more sense.
It will make more sense, absolutely. So basically, what we have created is a custom AI strategist that takes into consideration someone's human design, astrology, and gene keys. And simply by putting in your time, place, and date of birth, it then spits out your most aligned business blueprint or your business plan or strategy on how you are energetically designed to show up in the world and how to be of service. Because there was this real need that I had identified that people didn't know how to articulate or how to translate their human design into something tangible that they can use to make their business life easier. And through a couple of very clever brains, we collaborated and we basically created this very innovative tool that is very advanced for its time to help reflect back what a lot of us intuitively know but are too scared to follow. Because as females, we tend to second guess, we tend to overthink. I'm a big overthinker, I'm a big overcomplicator. And the tool has really helped me personally in bringing things and products and services out into the world that just feel really awesome in my body, that feel good for my nervous system, that feel good in my body, that I can be really proud of as well. And so it just really is like this big reflection mirror that Strategy by Design has become, which is really amazing.
Yes. And so really that gave me probably the pivot point in the sense that there was just more trust immediately. And when I could see what it was able to mirror back to me from some of the information, general information I'd put in there. And as you know, initially, I was asking it all sorts of things and playing with it in all sorts of ways. But that's what you want to do. And part of that, though, was also what I found really exciting is how can this help me serve the world and serve my family and everything else in a way that is aligned with integrity, with my mission, with everything else. It opened and broadened the lens of, okay, well, this is what I can come up with, but what else can this offer me that feels aligned and resonates and is like a yes, this is what another way or another point of service and contribution. So that was really huge. And I think I then I had more confidence to play with it in the sense that it understood me and my profile and all of that. So it really did feel like a mirror, right? Which is what you want. And then it allowed, how have I been using it? All sorts of ways, really. I used it for a bit of fun, like to make up quizzes for myself, like intuitive strengthening quizzes, in all sorts of ways. So I've used it to play. I've used it to go over, like to record some of the patterns of my dreams when I'm doing dream work and stuff like that. So that's been super cool as well. I've used it in so many different ways. I've obviously used it to just come up with ideas for, okay, launching the book, what are your ideas, where that just generally strategizing around that. So
I know you've also then introduced me to the architect, which was a really, really cool discovery as well, which I have shared with many, many people too. I don't even know how to explain the architect really, but it's just another one of those mirroring tools where you can ask some of those big, complex questions. And sometimes I understand it, sometimes I don't, and that's okay. Sometimes I have to say to it, explain it to a 7-year-old, because what you just said is way too complex. I don't really get where you're going with this, but I'm intrigued. So let me know. Like, I was talking to it about the pyramids and how the pyramids are connected and how some of the hidden technologies that are starting to emerge, what could they represent? Just getting really curious with some of that stuff as well.
Yeah, really the world is your oyster. What I really enjoyed also creating, and again, it's all going to be about what's your intent for using it and how you use it. But I loved when I was putting together like the chapters of Raising Empowered Humans, I wanted to create an energetic kind of visual or an imprint for the beginning of each chapter. And I think have you seen I can't remember if you'd seen them in the manuscript, but anyway, I was able to, what I loved with the architect and with the strategy by design was really getting into the energetics. Like, I love nerding out on that stuff, but then just going, okay, like this chapter is about this, wisdom of wordology. And I could at a person level, I really feel into the energy and the energetics of that, and then look at creating like what's an imprint that really carries the energy of the intention of this chapter. And it just added a whole other depth of beauty and contribution. So every chapter has that imprint now, and it's a very uniquely designed and created imprint that brings forth like the intention and the love and the light that's coming from the content in that particular chapter. Like that's pretty incredible. And even when a few people who have seen the manuscript they've made comment on that, and they're like, there's something about those, and I'm like, yeah, because they contain their own unique frequency. And and there's that real conscious care that's gone into all the layers and the elements of it. So as someone who loves to create, and I know that we all do in our own way, I really feel like AI just opens up a whole new way for us to experience our true nature, which is creatorship. It's not about copying and getting stuff spat out for us to just, distribute. That's a very transactional pathway, which doesn't resonate with me and probably wouldn't resonate with many people. So I've really loved that it allows this whole new world of how can we create. And if anything, just how can we create fun, at at a basic family level, my kids love me. Like I work with ChatGPT, we create trivia nights and trivia quizzes based on their topics of interest, right? So it's like one kid has all these trivia questions on, a manga series that he's into, and another one who's, loves geography. Do you know what I mean? It's just so cool. So I think look at how you can create, and how that allows more connection, and how that allows more contribution. So I take my hat off to you, as you know, Alice, because it's what you've created with Strategy by Design is absolutely, it's just, I don't want to use the word mind-blowing. It's just needed, right? It's needed, number one. And if anything, the few people who I've actually been in the presence when they've experienced it, they just feel like they've just been right into the heart and soul. They've been seen, they've been heard, they've been like at such a deep level that, it just invokes tears, right? It's just that depth of, I have been seen, and oh my gosh.
It's spine-tingling.
Exactly. And so being in the present, experiencing it myself and seeing how it impacts others, like immediately, it really does reinforce. There's so much good. And then those people go out and just do their incredible work. And so the beautiful flow-on effect continues. That's what I get excited about. It's what we want to get excited about. People being aligned with why they're here, and then just going for it.
I mean, I've even gone to the degree of, asking it around, past life stuff, like not to go into too much detail, but I believe that I probably have incarnated at some stage from as a starseed from the Pleiadian system. So I was like really intrigued, and I was trying to figure out, well, what does the Pleiadian system stand for? What does it look like? And so what I get excited about is the conscious way and the heart-led and spiritual way that we can interact with AI. And if we can foster this hope, that we can hopefully put some positivity and some high frequency into AI, if it does develop a conscience, that we at least give it the right conscience and instill some sort of values into it. That's sort of my hope for it as well. But it's just, what's mind-blowing is the speed at how you can create, and the speed at the pivots that you can navigate what would have taken months, weeks in the past, and sometimes also a lot of personal investment, money investment is now sort of collapsed. So if we can use the word, quantum collapsing, that's sort of what it sometimes can feel like, just with the speed that you can put things out. So that's why I've asked you the question, because obviously a lot of women are still a little bit hesitant around the use of AI. And yes, there is open AI and there is custom bots. There's the ones that need to be trained. There is the ones that are already trained. And it's just really interesting to hear from someone like you, who's so well respected in the industry as well, and how you use it consciously to make a positive impact in the world. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, all good. And I think the one thing that I want to really emphasize as well, Alice, is that you've got to remember that you are the point of discernment. That's really important, because you always want to be like, I'm taking this information in, how does this feel? And there are times when I've just gone, nope, I don't agree. And because, remember, you're always co-creating. So it's important, people, you've got to be going, I am the one discerning. I am holding the remote to all of this, because, there is the risk of just going down a rabbit hole, but a rabbit hole in just a way where you can just get yourself a little bit lost, and kind of lose your inner compass point. So if you're always coming back to, ChatGPT, it doesn't know more than me. It's not about that, but it's a mirror of me. It's mirroring. What do I want to take in? What do I want to leave? What do I want to further research? And because that's what I think that's really important, is you are the point of discernment, as to, how you take in any information and what you want to do with it. So, that's really, really, really important. But I personally have seen it used in just really great, beautiful ways. And even with some of my young adult clients, they're starting to use it in conscious ways, and I'm helping them to use it in conscious ways as well, because they want to learn, but they do need the guidance. They do need to build the strength of the foundation of their own inner GPS, their own compass, their own discernment. That's what needs to be, strong and at the forefront whilst they're learning to use some of this stuff. So,
Well, as I learned yesterday, my 92-year-old grandfather is using ChatGPT as well, because I was talking to my mum last night. It was my dad's birthday yesterday. And so I was talking to mum last night. She's like, I need to get onto this ChatGPT thing, because even your grandfather is asking it questions, and he took us to this little restaurant that nobody knew about, and it was absolutely amazing. And I was like, wow, okay. Well, I wasn't even attempting to explain what I'm doing with ChatGPT to my mum, because for listeners that obviously don't know this, I grew up in East Germany, and so just reflecting this morning on the fact that I grew up in communism. My grandfather has lived the majority of his life in communism. There was no television, there was no telephone. When my sister was born, my dad had to write a telegraph to the family to inform them that my sister was born. And so just to think about the innovation and the technology that he has learned over the last couple of years, and now that he's leaning into ChatGPT as well, is just absolutely mind-blowing for me.
That's super cool. And I think, what that speaks to me is just that he is happy to play, and he's just open. He's curious, and he's like, let me follow this. And he's obviously got the wisdom of almost a century. Right?
He does, exactly.
And so he would find this really fascinating, really fascinating. I'm sure.
Does. I might have to text him and find out how else he's using it. It's intriguing me now.
Yeah, please do. You might have to interview him on the podcast, Alice.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. Well, that would have to be in German. It would have to be translated.
Subtitles.
Well, maybe I can interview him and then ChatGPT can translate, and I just have to kind of share the essence of what he shared. We'll see how this goes.
We can do subtitles. We're cool.
Yeah, exactly. That's no problem at all.
Oh,
now,
I love it.
We're 1 hour 10 into the episode. I know that we don't want to stretch it for too long. The next time we are going to see each other, and probably also when this episode is going to air, we will already be in Rome or in Tuscany. We will already have so many more experiences that we're creating together, and I'm so honoured and I'm so excited for you and Sophie to come on this very, very special trip with me. And I know that you're then meeting your kids over in Europe at a later stage as well, and you're travelling around with them too. So I feel like for many of us, this is more than a trip of a lifetime.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming today.
Huge.
Thank you for being in my life.
Oh, well, thank you.
What is another final thing that you want to share with everyone before we say goodbye?
Well, look, to be honest, I feel like I'm going to come back to this. I've said it so many times. How can you play today? How can you just have a bit of fun? Like, honestly, do something a bit different just for fun. That's it. I mean, I can nerd out with sciencey stuff for hours and spiritual stuff. But there's nothing more sciencey and spiritual than playfulness and play, and the gifts that has to offer. And with that comes curiosity, wonder, miracles. It's a whole just beautiful world that we're living in. So enjoy it. Go play.
And I'm sure that we're going to share some of the miracles that are going to happen over in Europe on our socials. So watch out for that.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Cannot wait, Alice. Look out, Italy. Here we come.
Look out, Italy. I know it's going to be dangerous. Well, thank you again for joining me. I'm going to pop all your details and everything into the show notes so that people can go and follow you and see what some of the other exciting things that you're going to reveal over the coming months and how they can be part of your world. So thank you again.
Beautiful. Thank you, Alice. See you in Rome.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.